The real question I think I got to ask here is Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes going to become the new Brady Manning? Hey, what's up YouTube? My name's Quincy Carrier, and this is Q&A where I take your questions and I answer them. Okay, and the first question is from 147TSK who asks, do you think the Browns will draft the QB in the mid to late rounds to back up Baker? Um, in short, no, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to stick with Drew Stanton to be the backup. I think one of the downsides to Baker Mayfield's personalities is that he's not a dude who's going to be okay with you drafting a backup in the fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh round. This is somebody who's going to see that as a hit of loyalty from the organization to him. So, that being said, I don't think that makes it possible for you to really try to do the Kirk Cousins thing. And I don't think the Browns really have to waste that high of a pick on the quarterback, especially in this year's draft, because I don't see anybody. But no, I don't think the Browns will do that. I think the Browns are going to stick with Drew Stanton as their backup. And just a fun little fact, if you look around the league, you can always tell the stability of a quarterback to team marriage when you look at the backup. So if the backup's somebody who has some promise, that says a lot about what they think about the guy who's currently the starter. And I don't think the Browns are at that point. I think they're going to feel perfectly fine with Drew Stanton as a backup or some other unnamed, veteran Chase Daniel. The next question is from Harrison22, who asks, what is the deal with Austin Corbett, Desmond Harrison, and Chad Thomas? I know Harrison has started a few times, but what are the plans for the next year? This is interesting. I think the plan for Desmond Harrison next year is to see if he can compete for the right tackle position, because that is a position we needed to upgrade in. And I think John Dorsey still believes a great deal in Desmond Harrison, enough to make him a right tackle for the time being. So I think that's Desmond Harrison's immediate future, is competing for that right tackle spot, because I think Greg Robinson has taken the left tackle spot from him. Austin Corbett's a weird one because he's a guard, but if there's one position on that line that we're set at as guard, Mary Kay Cabot put out an interesting piece a couple weeks ago saying that it could be possible for the Browns to trade Kevin Zeitler to free up that spot for Austin Corbett, which I do see as a possibility if they can fetch something good enough for Kevin Zeitler, if they believe that Austin Corbett can step in and start right away. And as far as Chad Thomas goes, I think the plan for him is he just got to make sure he makes the roster next year. Didn't get any playing time this year. So hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. He has a better year next year. He can start to get into rotation, but there's really no plan for Chad Thomas, I would guess. The next question comes from Sean Benson, who asks, do you think Steve Wilkes can bring us a top 5 defense? I would hope so. But honestly, I don't think that question's as much about Steve Wilkes as it is about what the Browns have on defense. And I do think they have a lot of really good core pieces. I think they're missing a couple pieces that can make them a top 5 defense. But when you got Myles Garrett, Demarius Randall, Denzel Ward, as kind of the cornerstone pieces of your defense, I think it makes it a lot easier to have a top 15 to top 5 kind of defense. If they get a couple more corners, they get a couple more linebackers and some defensive tackles, then yeah, I think this can be a top 5 defense. And I think Steve Wilkes is definitely capable of doing that because in Carolina, he had some really good defenses. The next question comes from, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering this name, Misha Geleneva. I think I butchered it. I'm sorry. But they ask, who do you think is the best young quarterback for years to come? Would you trade Baker for Wentz if possible, or Mahomes? All right, so the first one, would I trade Baker Mayfield for Carson Wentz? No. I think Carson Wentz gets injured too much to even really seriously consider that trade. If you look at Philadelphia, they've ended the last 2 seasons with Nick Foles at quarterback because Carson Wentz just can't seem to stay healthy. And I'm going to bring up another quick rant. When it comes to people, quarterbacks especially, that could stay healthy, there seems to be this thing where people want to correlate that to their size. Carson Wentz is a big guy, 6'5", 230, and still, even he has trouble staying healthy. If you look at guys like Drew Brees or Baker Mayfield or Russell Wilson, guys who, especially with Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield, early in the season got hit way more than most other quarterbacks, they're still able to stay healthy. So I think not being injured is more of a kind of random genetic thing than it has to do with size. But that's a whole nother rant. But no on Carson Wentz. Now on Patrick Mahomes, and I know this is crazy. He just won the MVP. And people are going to kill me in the comment section down below for this. But I'm just not sold on how good Patrick Mahomes is going to be outside of the Andy Reid system yet. I watched a couple of Kansas City games this year, and I know one of the things I went away with both times I watched them was, wow, his receivers are always wide open, and when it comes to something like that in a swap situation, I feel way more comfortable taking a guy like Baker Mayfield where, yeah, the scheme was good, but you can clearly see he had to overcome some talent gaps and some scheme gaps with just ball placement and sheer quarterback ability. Not saying that I don't think Patrick Mahomes is incredibly talented. I do. But, as far as would I trade Baker for him, I think no, because I think Baker's the perfect fit for the Browns. And I think he has the potential to be the best quarterback out of all three. Okay, the next question is from the Catster. Great name again. How do you think the NFL will schedule the Browns next season, knowing that there's going to be more interest in them? Are we going to play more primetime games? And the answer to that question is, oh, hell yeah. If you look at the NFL, they really are trying to position Baker Mayfield as a new face of the league. So they're going to put that face out there a lot on its primetime television. I mean, I think if you're a Browns fan, you've gotten used to it being pretty convenient. The Browns always play at 1 o'clock on Sundays. Sometimes if they're on the West Coast, they'll play at 4:15. It's going to get real inconvenient for Browns fans. We're going to be playing Thursday nights, Monday nights, Sunday nights, some Saturday nights. We're going to be playing all over the schedule. I think the Browns are going to have a lot of primetime games this upcoming season just because Baker Mayfield's such a polarizing figure. And it seems to be with the NFL 100 commercial at the Super Bowl, with Tom Brady literally handing his rings to Baker Mayfield, is that the league sees Baker Mayfield as a personality that they can really market and sell in this generation. The more and more I see Baker Mayfield do these commercials, do these comedic sketches, and he shows off his personality range, if he backs that up with his play on the field, he really is kind of a more edgy, this generation's version of a Peyton Manning when it comes to that. I mean, when it comes to quarterbacks and guys in the league that you can really see hosting an episode of SNL and it being good, I think Baker Mayfield has the potential to actually do that. So, yeah, long story short, the Browns are going to be in a lot of primetime games this year and hopefully for years to come. So get used to not knowing when the hell the Browns are going to play. The Catster asks another great question and has a great name. Do you think the Browns and Lamar Jackson are going to end up developing a great divisional rivalry like everybody seems to think so? This is interesting. I'm not sold on the longevity of what Lamar Jackson has done in the NFL. I don't know if they've figured it out. And I think with Baltimore, there are a lot of question marks coming ahead for that organization. Not the team, but the organization. With Ozzie Newsome stepping down, that's just a huge question mark. They've never had a season without him. No more Joe Flacco. They're going to have a change at quarterback. Are they going to be able to do the same thing? Are they going to change it up? They got a lot of questions before I can feel comfortable saying that, hey, the Browns and the Ravens are going to be something for a long time. But it does seem to be pointing that direction. I don't think that any of the other teams in the division, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are really pointing up right now. So right now, I think it's closer to being true than it's not, but I'm not sold on Lamar Jackson's long-term future. This next question comes from the Danster. Do you think the Browns are going to draft a kicker this year? Uh, is there a kicker worth drafting this year, though? That's really the question. You know, on paper, yeah, the Browns should probably draft a kicker if he's on the board, but not an NFL kicker isn't really available every year in the draft. So that's always the hard thing when it comes to drafting kickers. Is there a kicker worth drafting? Um, the last kicker the Browns drafted was Zane Gonzalez, and we know how that ended. But do I think they're going to draft a kicker? I don't. I think that they feel like Greg Joseph is as good as any kicker they can get in the draft. Cleveland Rocks asks, who is your favorite retired Browns player? So this is an easy one for me for so many reasons. But it's Josh Cribbs for me. When I was a kid, I would say like when I was 10, that's when I really started becoming like a hardcore Browns fan. And I think that was around like 2004, 2005. And that's when Josh Cribbs started beasting on those kick returns. And it was the first time I saw a Browns player that could take control of one facet of the game like that teams feared. And Josh Cribbs, he was tough. He was a great defensive special teamer as well. He had a lot of big hits. People don't talk about that when they talk about Josh Cribbs. And I don't think they talk about Josh Cribbs enough and what his contributions were to the Browns and to the game. But yeah, he was a great special teams defensive player on punt defense and on kickoff defense. He would be the first guy on the field and make tackles. He was really good on that part of the field. For so many reasons, Josh Cribbs, I mean, I had him as a MySpace friend back in the day. Shows my age. But yeah, Josh Cribbs is my all-time favorite retired Browns. He's the first Browns player that I truly would get excited to see what they would do with the ball. Raya Mays asks, where do you think Baker Mayfield ranks as a quarterback around the league next year? And where do you think the Browns are going to rank in their division next year? Well, for the first question, I think Baker Mayfield, in order to have what is going to be perceived as a successful season, is going to have to be in that top 10 quarterback conversation. So I think that's definitely just what Baker has to do in order for people to think he had a good year. And the second part of that question, where I think the Browns rank in the division, I still think you're going to be at the same level as Pittsburgh and Baltimore. And I think the way the AFC North is going to work for the next year or so is that there's the Bengals at the bottom, and then it's kind of a free-for-all between the Steelers, Ravens, and Bengals. I don't think one team outranks the other yet or is clearly better, especially with Pittsburgh getting set to lose 2 of their triple Bs. And with Baltimore having so much with Baltimore having so many question marks with how their offense is going to work, if they're going to sign back CJ Mosley, they have a lot of question marks there. And with the Browns, it seems like they're on their way to surpassing them in the division, but they still got to prove it on the field. So I don't feel comfortable saying that they're going to clearly be better than Pittsburgh or Baltimore yet. This next question from Twitter is from I'm Mr. Big Fella, and he asks, what do you think the Browns would do with Jamie Collins this offseason? Oh, they're going to cut him by March. Jamie Collins will not get his roster bonus this offseason. So I don't think Jamie Collins has a future on this team. They want to give more snaps to Jannard Avery. They play the same 4-3 linebacker hybrid pass rusher position, except for Jannard Avery has played it better, in my opinion, last season. So I think they're going to want to give him more snaps anyways. So it doesn't make sense to pay Jamie Collins the crazy amount of money he's going to be due this offseason, especially since he's not guaranteed any more money and he won't be that big of a cap hit against the Browns. So expect Jamie Collins to be cut relatively soon, I would think. All right, guys, that's going to do it for all the questions. Thank you guys for tweeting and posting these questions on YouTube and Twitter. Uh, it's always a great time to look at the questions, see what you guys have to say. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and tell me what you thought of some of the things that I've said, and ask me some questions down there so you can be featured in next week's Q&A video. All right, guys, my name is Quincy Carrier. Thank you for watching. You have a great night.